The first thing I noticed was the silence. Hospital rooms aren't usually quiet. There's always some mechanical beeping or shoes squeaking in the hallway. But when I opened my eyes, everything felt still, unnaturally so. The fluorescent lights above me buzzed faintly. The air smelled like antiseptic and distant cafeteria coffee. My throat was dry, my body heavy. I tried to shift instinctively. That's when I felt it, or didn't feel it. "Ava," a soft voice said from my left, a nurse, mid-40s, kind eyes. Her name tag said Marissa. "You're in recovery. You were in an accident. You've come through surgery, but..." She hesitated. I already knew. Somewhere inside me, something had already shut down and rebooted with less than it came in with. "We had to amputate," she finally said. "There was too much damage. The doctors tried everything. But the trauma to your left leg was catastrophic." I didn't cry, didn't scream, just nodded because I couldn't find any words and because the pain meds dulled everything but the pounding in my chest. The door opened. Derek stepped in, his expression unreadable. Not relief, not concern, just blank. He didn't rush to my side, didn't take my hand or brush hair from my forehead like he used to when I had the flu, and he thought he was being sweet. Instead, he stood at the foot of my bed like he'd stumbled into the wrong room and was too polite to leave. "I guess you heard," he said, eyes not quite meeting mine. I wanted him to say, "We'll get through this. We'll figure it out. I'm here." But all he did was glance at his phone and then back at me like he was checking on a delayed flight. He didn't ask how I was feeling, didn't kiss my forehead, didn't cry. When the silence became unbearable, he cleared his throat. The doctors said they'll be in soon, for whatever next steps. Then he left. No hand squeeze, no backward glance, just a hollowed-out room, a missing leg, and the growing certainty that this, whatever this was only the beginning. He waited until the following afternoon, long enough for the anesthesia to wear off, but not long enough for me to stop floating in and out of sleep. The sun was sliding down the side of the hospital across the street when he walked in again, holding a cup of coffee he didn't offer me. I was propped up now, the bandages under my gown itching and tight, the ache a dull roar beneath the meds. He didn't sit. "I've been thinking," Derek said, voice careful, practiced, "and I don't think I can do this." I blinked. "Do what?" He looked down at the floor, then back at me. "This, all of this, it's too much. I'm sorry, Ava." I waited for the punchline, or maybe the actual sentence, but that was it. He was leaving me. No context, no conversation, not even a lousy, "It's not you, it's me," just, "You lost your leg, and now I'm out." My lips parted, but no sound came out. He mistook my silence for permission to keep going. "I think you'll be better off," he said, as if he were talking about a mutual breakup, not abandoning his wife less than 48 hours after major surgery. "You're strong. You'll bounce back. But I don't think I'm built for this." There it was. Not love, not loyalty. Just a man who looked at a woman with one leg and saw inconvenience. "I've already started the paperwork," he added. "You'll be served later this week." That was the moment I broke, not in the way he probably expected. No screaming, no begging, no sobbing into my hospital blanket. I simply turned my face toward the window and said nothing. Not because I didn't care, but because something inside me had gone quiet, the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. He left before sunset, and as the sky deepened to orange, I stared out at the street below and thought, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." But I didn't say it. Not yet. The divorce papers arrived before I was even discharged. They came in a pale yellow envelope delivered by a man in khakis and a polite smile who looked vaguely embarrassed to be serving legal documents to a woman hooked up to IV fluids. "For Ava Sinclair," he said. "Sorry, ma'am." I didn't respond, just took the envelope and placed it on the tray table beside my untouched lunch. I didn't open it right away. I already knew what it said. Derek didn't wait. Not even a week. While I was still learning how to sit upright without the world spinning, he'd been filing paperwork and signing documents, making our marriage a matter of clerical convenience. When the nurse brought in a new round of meds, I finally unfolded the papers. It felt surgical, clean, cold, transactional. 2 weeks ago, we were planning a vacation. Now he was citing irreconcilable differences with the casual cruelty of someone canceling a gym membership. And then I checked our bank account. 0. Literally. Not even the courtesy of leaving gas money. He'd withdrawn everything from our joint savings, and I knew instantly this wasn't impulse. This had been planned. Leah arrived that afternoon carrying a ridiculous bouquet of bright sunflowers and a bag of overpriced lattes. Her smile faltered the second she saw my face. "What happened?" she asked, voice low and direct. I handed her the envelope, watched her face harden as she read. "He filed? Already?" Her voice was rising, but she kept it in check. "Barely. What the actual—" "He emptied our account," I said flatly. Leah went still. "Okay," she said, setting down the coffee. "That's not just divorce. That's theft." "I think he's been planning this," I whispered. "For a while." She looked at me for a long time. Then she sat on the edge of the bed, eyes sharper than I'd ever seen them. "Then we planned something too." I nodded once, because in that moment, I wasn't a woman who'd just lost her leg. I was a woman who'd just lost her illusion. And there's power in seeing clearly. Leah was never one to let things go. Within 24 hours, she had access to our old shared home security account, the cloud backup from Derek's laptop, and a snapshot of his recent call history, all legal, all done with the kind of precision that comes from righteous fury. "You were right," she said, walking into my hospital room with her phone in hand and a look that could slice glass. "He's been cheating." I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just waited. "It's Maya," she said, "your physical therapist." I blinked once, then again. "She's been working with him behind the scenes. I found texts going back 6 months. They weren't subtle. Can't wait for our life to start. She's so needy lately. And this one," Leah scrolled, turned the screen to show me. "Once the surgery's done, I'll handle it, promise Dot." My stomach turned. Maya. The woman who adjusted my crutches and gave me advice on how to manage phantom pain. The one who smiled too wide and asked about my relationship with the kind of interest that, in hindsight, was far too personal. "He brought her to our house," Leah added. "Multiple times, same nights he told you he was working late." It hit me slowly. Not like a slap, but like a wave pulling back to reveal the wreckage. Derek hadn't cracked under pressure. He hadn't panicked when he saw my injury. He'd been waiting for it. Waiting for the right moment. The clean break. The perfect excuse to disappear. "I found a deleted email draft," Leah continued. "He was pricing apartments 2 months ago, the kind that screams midlife crisis. Rooftop pool, valet parking. He had a plan, Ava." Of course he did. A man like Derek didn't leap. He calculated. "He didn't leave because of the accident," I said quietly. "The accident just gave him cover." Leah nodded. "But he forgot who he was dealing with." I looked down at the thick envelope of divorce documents, then at the IV taped to my arm. I might have lost a limb, but Derek was about to lose everything, and I was going to make sure he felt it. Rock bottom doesn't always come with sirens or screaming. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it looks like a woman staring at the hospital ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering how a life built over a decade could be gutted in a single week. My leg was gone. My marriage was gone. My savings were gone. And still, somehow, I was breathing. I didn't eat for 2 days. Nurses came and went. Doctors checked vitals. Leah tried to get me to talk, but I just stared out the window. There's a kind of numbness that wraps around you like gauze. I didn't even feel sad, just hollow. Until I overheard one of the orderlies whispering in the hallway, "That's the one whose husband left her after the amputation. Poor thing." That was the moment. It was small, fleeting, but it snapped something back into place. Poor thing. Derek had counted on that, on people writing me off, on me disappearing quietly like some tragic side character in his happily ever after. He had no idea who I really was. By the end of the week, I requested a new physical therapist. I said Maya's presence made me uncomfortable. No one asked why. My new team was different, professional, focused. There was no forced small talk, no condescension masked as cheerfulness. They pushed me, but respectfully. And I pushed back, slowly at first, then with purpose. Every movement hurt. Every small victory felt enormous. But I didn't cry in front of them. I didn't rant about Derek or Maya. I didn't explain myself. I just worked. I listened, observed. And when I wasn't lifting weights or learning to balance again, I was making lists, names, resources, passwords, dates. I began organizing my own data the same way I once managed code libraries, quietly, methodically, with intention, because Derek thought he was ending something. But he'd only started the countdown. The first time I stood on the prosthetic, I shook like a leaf, not from fear, from adrenaline. There was something electric about feeling the floor beneath me again, even if it wasn't the same. I stared at my reflection in the therapy mirror, hospital gown, messy bun, pale skin, and still standing. "You okay?" the therapist asked. "I'm getting there," I said. Progress was slow, but consistent. I trained daily, built endurance, logged everything. Pain levels, pressure points, balance shifts. I didn't post updates. I didn't tell anyone outside of Leah. I didn't need applause. I needed focus. Derek had blocked me on every platform, Maya too. But their silence was louder than anything they could have said. They were watching. I knew it. And I wanted them to underestimate me. 3 weeks into rehab, I made my second quiet move. I reached out to a former colleague, Elliot, from my old tech firm. We used to lead a development team together before I left to support Derek's latest career pivot. At the time, he'd called me the brain of the operation. He picked up on the first ring. "Holy hell, Ava, where have you been?" "Rebooting," I said. He didn't ask questions, just told me the company missed me, that a few of my old projects were still being used, that there were whispers about a new platform I once sketched out in a prototype meeting. "I've got time on my hands," I told him, "and a few new ideas." We scheduled a call. I pulled up old files from my personal drive, reorganized everything. I wasn't sure where it would lead, but it felt like something solid beneath my feet. Finally. The body heals slower than the mind. But the mind, when sharpened by betrayal, becomes a weapon, and I was just getting started. Before the accident, before the divorce papers, before everything went sideways, I had an idea, a side project, a startup concept I'd sketched out on napkins and coded late at night while Derek binge-watched political thrillers and told me I should rest more. It was a data security tool for small businesses, smart, streamlined, scalable. I'd mocked up a prototype and pitched it once during a tech mixer. The response had been warm, promising. But when I brought it up to Derek, he laughed. "You already have a job," he said. "That's too ambitious anyway. You'd need investors, time, money, just focus on what pays the bills." So I shelved it, closed the files, forgot the name. Until now. I dug it out one quiet evening in the rehab center, using a borrowed laptop and a secure connection. The code was cleaner than I remembered. The UI had potential. My instincts buzzed with that old hum, the one that only comes when I know I'm onto something. The name of the project was Signal Vault, still perfect. I texted Elliot, told him I wanted to rebuild it. Leaner, faster, sharper. He offered to connect me with 2 developers who'd left the company recently, both of whom still respected my work. Within a week, we had a private Slack channel, a shared dev environment, and a loose roadmap. I didn't tell anyone else, not even Leah, not yet. Because Derek still thought I was broken. He'd moved on with his new life, his new woman, his shallow new future. I was the sob story in the background, the sad amputee ex-wife who couldn't possibly pose a threat. Perfect. Let him think that. While he counted his blessings, I was counting lines of code, pitch decks, and early feature tests. Signal Vault was back, and this time, no one would tell me it was too ambitious. Leah always said if she hadn't gone into event planning, she would have made a great private investigator. Turns out she wasn't wrong. We started with the basics, joint statements, old passwords, account histories. What we found wasn't just suspicious, it was calculated. 2 months before the accident, Derek had started moving funds, small at first. A few hundred here, 1,000 there, just enough to stay beneath my radar. But over time, the pattern grew. I might have missed it if I hadn't been recovering, watching everything with new eyes. Then Leah found something worse. A wire transfer to a private account I didn't recognize, signed under my name, only I never signed it. "He forged your authorization," Leah said, eyes narrowed. "Sloppy. He didn't even match your signature well." She pulled up the scanned PDF side by side with one of my actual bank forms. The difference was obvious. To anyone paying attention, it was a joke. "Can we prove it?" I asked. Leah smiled. "Absolutely, and we will." We built a folder, digital and physical, screenshots, statements, login histories, metadata. We color-coded it by offense, unauthorized transactions in blue, forgery in red, unethical conduct in yellow. By the time we were done, the evidence was damning. He hadn't just left me, he'd stolen from me. While I'd been lying in a hospital bed, learning how to live without part of my body, he'd been siphoning away pieces of my future. And for what? A new girlfriend? A downtown loft with exposed brick and a rooftop hot tub? I felt the anger, but only for a moment. Then I filed it away like everything else. Because I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. First, I was going to build my case. Then, I was going to bury him with it. Derek was thriving, at least according to Instagram, sun-drenched vacation selfies, a rooftop champagne toast in a high-rise apartment with skyline views. "New beginnings," the caption read, under a picture of him and Maya draped over each other like a magazine ad for shallow happiness. He'd just been promoted, apparently. New title, new watch, new life. What he didn't mention in those curated snapshots was that the new life had been partially financed with funds he wasn't legally entitled to. The apartment deposit? Paid for with money from our joint account? Right before he filed. The romantic getaway to Tulum? Covered by a card he forgot to take me off of. The custom espresso machine they posted about? Technically, I bought it. He smiled wide in every photo. Maya, too. And every time they posted something new, Leah and I added it to the folder. Evidence, receipts, screenshots. It was all fuel. I found a lawyer named Danica Holt, former corporate shark turned asset recovery specialist. Smart, brutal, efficient. The kind of woman who smiled while she bled people dry in court. She took one look at the documentation Leah and I compiled and nodded. "We've got him." I didn't need vengeance. I needed legal standing. I wanted my accounts unfrozen, my name cleared, my stolen money returned, and I wanted it done the right way. Quietly, surgically, without giving Derek a heads up. Danica filed motions under seal, froze the transfer trail before he could react. She drafted a civil claim for asset misappropriation and financial misconduct and sent it to his office with the kind of subtlety that feels like a gunshot in a silent room. Meanwhile, Derek and Maya continued posting brunches and boat days, oblivious. He thought he'd erased me from the narrative, but I wasn't gone. I was watching. And soon the whole world would be too. Signal Vault launched on a Tuesday. No press conference, no overproduced promo, just a clean website, a slick explainer video, and a private demo sent to a handful of tech journalists and potential investors. By Thursday, 3 outlets had already published articles calling it a game changer for small business cybersecurity. By Friday, we were trending in the B2B space. And by the following Monday, Tech and Tomorrow ran a full-length feature, Reclaiming Power, how Ava Sinclair reinvented herself and an industry. The photo was deliberate. I sat at my desk, prosthetic, fully visible, face calm, focused, unflinching. The article covered everything. My previous experience, the company's mission, the unique features we'd built. It didn't mention the divorce. Didn't need to. The subtext was loud enough. Derek saw it. I knew because he broke his months-long silence to text me. What the hell is this? I didn't respond. The next day, his tone changed. You could have told me. We could have worked something out. Worked something out? Like he worked out draining our accounts and filing papers before I could stand? The third text came at 2 a.m. You're making me look like a monster. I showed it to Leah. She laughed so hard she choked on her wine. He did that all on his own, I said. The best part? Investors were calling. Early adopters were onboarding, and I hadn't even done the full press run yet. Derek wanted me to disappear. Instead, I put my name on the map and made sure it stayed there. He had no idea what was coming. The first court filing hit Derek's inbox on a Wednesday morning. A formal complaint for financial fraud, asset misappropriation, and forgery, complete with exhibits, transaction logs, notarized comparisons of his forged signature against my real one, and screenshots of the apartment lease paid with stolen funds. Danica, my lawyer, delivered it like a sniper shot, silent, precise, and devastating. By noon, a freeze order was approved. Every account in Derek's name, joint, personal, even his shiny new business credit card, locked. Access revoked. Transactions halted. His entire financial world suspended mid-swipe. Maya was included, of course. She'd been listed as a co-user on one of the cards. The Tulum trip, labeled as a misuse of marital funds. Her name appeared in the subpoena with bold, satisfying clarity. She tried to play innocent, claimed she had no idea what he was doing, that she just thought he was being generous. But screenshots said otherwise. She'd written, "You deserve it all. She's draining you." That line ended up in the court packet, underlined. By Friday, she was gone. Leah spotted the update first. Maya changed her relationship status to single and made her profile private. That didn't take long, she said, passing me her phone. Parasites don't stick around when the host stops feeding them, I replied, sipping tea. Derek texted again. This time, long paragraphs filled with panic and blame. You didn't have to go this far. We could have handled this between us. You're ruining my life, but I wasn't ruining it. He did that himself. I was just making sure the consequences showed up on time. By the following week, the company that once celebrated Derek as a rising star in tech finance had removed his name from their leadership page. A quiet HR bulletin went out internally. Effective immediately, Derek Caldwell is no longer with the company. No press release, no farewell post, just a silent digital erasure. His LinkedIn went dark 2 days later. Industry contacts who once liked his beach photos were now ghosting him. And the promotion he flaunted online? Turns out it was never finalized. The offer had been pending a background check that now flagged multiple legal inquiries. Danica received an email from their legal team. They were cooperating fully. Derek had acted independently. The company was distancing itself to maintain its ethical standards. A week after that, a letter arrived, typed, formal, apologetic. It came from Derek's new attorney, a different one than before. Apparently, the first had dropped him once the forgery evidence surfaced. This one was softer, more strategic. On behalf of my client, we wish to extend a formal apology for the distress caused. Mr. Caldwell is deeply regretful and would like to avoid further escalation. He is willing to issue a public apology if a private settlement can be discussed. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I didn't even reply. I forwarded it to Danica with a single line. We don't negotiate with liars. Let him keep drafting his public apologies. Let him beg for closure. The truth was already out, and my silence spoke louder than any press statement. He'd built a life on lies and expected no one to call his bluff. Now his empire was crumbling, and I hadn't even raised my voice. They asked me to close out the conference. It was one of the biggest events in the tech industry. 4 days of panels, product launches, innovation showcases. The kind of crowd that once made me nervous, that I used to watch from the audience while someone else took credit for my work. But this time, I wasn't behind the scenes. I was center stage. The introduction was flattering, maybe too flattering. Founder and CEO of Signal Vault, industry disruptor, cybersecurity visionary. I smiled politely as I walked up the steps. My prosthetic clicked softly against the platform, steady and unapologetic. I didn't use a teleprompter. I didn't need one. 3 years ago, I began. I was sitting in a hospital bed, learning how to walk again. Not metaphorically, literally. A quiet ripple passed through the crowd. I'd just survived an accident, lost a leg, and within days, I lost my marriage, my savings, and the future I thought I'd built. I let the silence hang, not for pity, for gravity. I was supposed to disappear, be written off, but instead, I rebuilt. I told them about Signal Vault, how it started as a sidelined idea, how I coded from a rehab bed, how I pulled together a team that believed in the vision when no one else did. I didn't come here to talk about loss, I said. I came here to talk about what happens when you stop waiting for someone to save you and start building the life they never thought you'd have the strength to claim. The final slide was a simple one, a photo of me and my team, standing in front of the Signal Vault banner, all of us smiling, real smiles, not the curated kind. The crowd rose to their feet, not out of sympathy, out of respect. I walked off the stage not as someone who'd survived what was done to her, but as someone who had rewritten the ending. The message came through an anonymous email. Ava, please. I know I made mistakes. I've lost everything. I need to talk just once. I didn't open it. Didn't trace the IP. Didn't respond. Some things aren't worth reopening. Derek had gone from downtown penthouses to a Craigslist sublet with peeling paint. Maya had moved on predictably. His LinkedIn was blank, his savings depleted by legal fees and frozen accounts. Whatever future he imagined had unraveled, thread by thread, ego first. And I was closing on a new property. It was a townhouse in the historic district. White brick, black iron balcony, ivy growing along the side like something out of a dream. Years ago, Derek and I had walked past it on a rainy Sunday and joked, "Someday, when we're finally real adults." He'd said it like a fantasy. I bought it like a fact. All cash, no shared signatures, no compromises. It was mine. I moved in with little fanfare. Just me, a few boxes, and a bottle of vintage Cabernet I'd been saving for no particular occasion. I poured a glass, walked out onto the balcony, and watched the city move around me, alive, indifferent, beautiful. He had thought I needed him to feel whole. He had mistaken my silence for weakness, my rebuilding for retreat, my grace for surrender. But the truth was simple. I had outgrown the life we'd built together. I had outgrown him. And while he was trapped in the echo chamber of his own downfall, I was planting new roots in the very soil he'd tried to scorch. He thought I'd be bitter, but all I felt was peace. And that, I realized, was the most satisfying ending of all. The wind whipped gently around me as I stepped to the edge of the cliff, the salt-heavy air brushing across my skin like a benediction. Below, the Pacific stretched out in every direction, blue, boundless, and unapologetically wild. It had taken almost 2 years to get here, not to the overlook exactly, but to this moment, this clarity, this stillness, the kind you don't recognize when your life is spinning, but learn to cherish when you've clawed your way back from silence, from betrayal, from the hollow space where your old life used to be. I flexed my left leg, the prosthetic one, feeling the weight shift naturally into my core. It had taken months to feel normal, even longer to feel powerful. But now, it was second nature, just a part of me. Like the scars, like the story. Behind me, the Signal Vault retreat team was packing up after a weekend of workshops, connection, and planning. We'd rented a small cluster of cabins up the coast. No press, no distractions, just us. Innovating, laughing, building something real. They called me the CEO, but I didn't walk like one. I walked like a woman who had rebuilt herself from rubble and never once looked back. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the sun warm my face, letting the ocean sing the kind of song you only understand after you've endured enough silence. And I thought of him, not with pain, not even with anger, just a memory, a shadow. Derek had once stood beside me, pretending to plan a life he never intended to honor. He thought I was a placeholder until something shinier came along. Something less complicated, less whole. He thought the accident would destroy me, that the missing leg would mean a missing future. But I wasn't missing anything, not anymore. I opened my eyes, smiled. I had my company, my name, my strength, my home, my peace. And more than anything, I had myself, fully, fiercely, and finally. I took one last look at the horizon, and then I whispered, just loud enough for the wind to carry it. He thought I'd lose everything when I lost my leg, but that's when I found everything. Want to hear more of this? Then click on the video on the right-hand side, which is even more shocking.